All right, I wanted to show you a little update on DeeDee and Smudge, show you where we're at with them. So we're working them together quite often, as well as off of one another. So what I mean by that is sometimes we'll have one dog go to place as the other dog is doing a downstay or healing, or good job DeeDee, she's like, I'm on top of it, or waiting at the door. And then there's times where we're working them together, synced up together, where they're both doing the same thing. And so we use their name a lot to differ so that they can differentiate who's doing what. And so we just say the name and then give the command. And then we're also doing a lot of food stuff. So they're working mostly for their food. So what that means is they don't get their food from the dog bowl. And so I actually just have two little treat pouches here, and then the bigger one is Smudge, and I have a smaller one that's for DeeDee. And so we can just keep track of how much they're eating, so that they're eating what they need to be eating, but they are working for it. And with how food motivated they are, they really enjoy it, and it brings a lot of clarity for them as we're training. And so sometimes with Smudge, he can get a little bit nervous about the environment, or he can be really sensitive to pressure, and DeeDee can take a lot of pressure and sometimes tune out pressure and blow off commands. And so the food can bring in some of that clarity with them when we are dealing with certain things, or nerves or whatever, excitability, distractions, all kinds of stuff that the environment throws at the dogs. And so we have them in two different e-collar remotes, different colors, and so different from Mabel. And so it's easy for us to distinguish each dog. I do think that if they're going to be working together, it might be easier to have a 3-dog unit in the future. But I think when they first come home, practicing with them individually will not only be easier, but it will be really healthy for all 3 of them to build relationship with every person in the family when the other dog is not around, because they sometimes can get codependent, which can happen with litter mates. These guys aren't the worst that I've seen with that. One dog can be crated and the other dog can wander, but that did take some time to get them to that point where in the beginning they would, especially DeeDee, would bark a lot when Smudge was out of the crate and she was in the kennel. And so I'm going to have you guys practice that going forward as they come home. So I want to show you some of the stuff that we're working on. We're just going to work them in the yard. Okay, guys, come on, let's go. So I'm just going to have them go to place here. This is one thing that we do together. You can have the same place bed. You can also have separate place beds. So I've done this with DeeDee place, like switching her. Good. So that's getting her attention, and Smudge is supposed to stay there because his name was not called. The little things like that. Now this has taken some time. This has been their hardest thing, is when I call one dog off a certain position or release a dog or do heel work where a certain dog, they tend to want to break and just follow what the other dog is doing. And so this is what we've been doing pretty religiously so that they can think individually and not share a brain. So it's really, really good. So we'll do a little bit of a recall off with Smudge. Smudge. And then if DeeDee breaks, good girl. I'm just going to go in and reward her after I released him. Because that's hard, like her, having to come off. Smudge, good. And then I'm gonna give him food too, because sometimes he'll hesitate. He's like, well, she's not getting off the place bed, and so his body language will get lower, and he's very unsure. And so we want to make sure that he's listening. Good job. Smudge down. So sometimes when we come out in the backyard, that's where they have the hardest time listening. They do really well in the house, and they do really well in the front yard and on the walks, and they've done really well in stores. And we continue to work those things so that those things stick. But sometimes when we come in the backyard, they're like, well, this is where we play. This is where we play with the other dogs. And I put the other dogs up because everyone's eating dinner and they're going to work for their dinner. And so, this is really good so that dogs aren't so single-minded. Like, I have the leash on, that's when I'm trained. I have the e-collar on, that's when I do it. I go in the house, that's when I do it. It can happen anytime, whether we have food, whether we don't, whether we have the leash, whether we don't. Ideally, I like to use the e-collar so we have some kind of grounding consistency. But we come out in this yard just because this is like the fun yard and we go play. Doesn't necessarily mean that you can't do a downstay or send to place. So we'll try to keep smudging this down here. Down. Good boy. He fixed it. He hesitated. DeeDee. Good. Well, this is something that's been very tricky for them and has taken a lot of reps. And it has been quite the puppet show trying to control 2 dogs at once when they don't want to think and just turn their brain off and follow suit. Good job, DeeDee. Okay, let's put DeeDee in a down. We'll just DeeDee down. DeeDee down. You were already in a down and then I confused you. Good girl. Smudge. DeeDee down. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to start tapping the e-collar button. DeeDee down. Good. Smudge. DeeDee down. And I'm going to start tapping and pointing down. Good. Smudge. Nice. And so just lots of follow through, lots of patience. This is where a lot of people are like, they're not doing it and they're struggling and it's really hard. And it is hard. Training dogs is not always easy, but it's just patience and understanding that it is difficult. And so I'm going slow. In the beginning, we used a lot of leash, so they weren't off leash doing these exercises. We would have, one leash on them so I could kind of puppeteer this one and then come in and puppeteer that one. And so, but now we're to the point, okay, go play. Okay. Where they can be obedient around and with each other. They're getting tired. They've done a lot of training today, but, yeah, so we want to make sure that they're doing really good. You ready to go inside, Smudge? He's like, I'm tired. Anyway, they're doing great. We'll talk to you guys soon.